When it comes to investing or saving your cash, there are loads of places that you can put your money, and a lot of different opinions on the order that should happen in. Today, using best practices set out by financial advisors and some academic research, I will explain the step-by-step order you should consider allocating your funds to get the most out of your money here in the UK. But we're not going to mess about today, so let's just crack on with it and start with pension match.
Get to be 65, you're out of work and you need a source of money.
If you're in your 30s, you have a 60% chance of reaching the age of 80 if you're a man, and a 69% chance if you're a woman. If you hit 80, then you have between a 30 and 40% chance of getting to 90. Those are some high odds on getting old. For that reason, I believe that the first form of saving anyone should do, the first thing on the list, is to take advantage of your work-based auto-enrolment pension scheme. The sooner you start saving for your pension, the better. Two people saved £100 a month for retirement, but one starts at 25 and the other starts at 35. The earlier saver will have nearly twice as much by the age of 65. In most cases, the company you work for by law has to provide you with a match on contributions that you make. The minimum requirement currently is 3% of any income between the ranges of £6,240 and £50,270. This money is from your employer and is a use it or lose it benefit. So it's best to get it ASAP because, you can't get it backdated. 10% of people opt out of their work-based pension. And I know there's a lack of trust around the pension system.
The pension system is essentially a consumer fraud, a shell game and a hoax.
Even the current auto-enrolment schemes aren't perfect. I was reading a report the other day that estimates of the $43 billion a year that we pay into these schemes, around $9 billion is wasted. I'm dropping a video on Sunday the 7th of Jan that goes through step by step how to avoid this sort of waste in your own pension. But as a starting point, just make full use of the match contribution from your employer. Make this sort of saving the first thing you do, a non-negotiable. Your future wrinkly-ass self will thank your smooth butt today in the future when it comes to it. Trust me. Next, let's look at emergency funds. This one feels boring as hell, doesn't it? I know, emergency funds. But listen to these stats. 1 in 7 or 15% of UK adults have no savings at all. That's around 7.9 million people. 34% of all UK adults have less than £1,000 saved. Close to 40% of UK households are just one paycheck away from financial ruin. Edward A. Murphy Jr. famously said, "Anything that can go wrong will go wrong," especially on a long enough time horizon. On any given day, the chances of you having something go wrong in your life, car breakdown, losing your job, all of that, is pretty slim. But over a lifetime, something is guaranteed to happen. I've currently got a nail hanging out of one of my tyres.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's fine.
We need a cash emergency fund really for 3 reasons. It stops us going into debt when things happen. It protects us from selling investments when those things happen. And most importantly, it'll make you feel like an absolute legend having a pot of cash sat there ready for when things happen. Most people will say that we need 3 to 6 months worth of living costs before you do anything else on this list, any other form of saving or investing. I think personally that that's overkill to start with. I mean, how long realistically will it take you to save up that? A year or two? So I think before you do anything, just get yourself £1,000 together, stick it in an easy access, high interest savings account that you can get your hands on. You can then move on to other things on the list that we're about to look at. And while you're doing those other things, you can continue to add to your emergency fund month in, month out, just to build it up. On this 3 to 6 month point also, it's set at that sort of level because it takes that amount of time to find a new job. It gives you the breathing room to find a job that you want instead of jumping at the first thing that comes along because you're desperate for cash. But remember, this emergency fund's for essential costs. You don't need to build up a pot of cash that can cover all your savings, clothing, budgets, holidays and nights out. So actually, 6 months is just 6 months of essentials, which you probably find is quite a lot less. Okay, now let's look at high interest debt.
I'll just put it on my credit card. I'm never going to pay it back anyway.
I class this as anything above 5 to 6% that isn't a student loan or a mortgage or a car. The way you need to think about paying this kind of debt off is it is an investment. You're making a return because every overpayment that you make is saving you the interest that you would have paid on the debt. Investing in the stock market produces, on average, say 8 to 9% a year before inflation long term. But this return is not guaranteed. The return or saving you get from clearing off a credit card debt is guaranteed. And the rates there can be as high as, 22, 30%. I've seen Amex's at like 70%. It is worth looking at refinancing. Can you get the interest rates down? Can you consolidate with a loan? Move credit cards onto interest-free cards or use cash transfers to pay off other debts? These come with a small fee, normally 1 to 3% of the amount you transfer, but it will save you lots in interest potentially. There is no easy way to pay off debt. You just have to pay it off. But there are two methods for clearing it traditionally, the snowball and the avalanche method. The snowball method is where you make minimum payments on all of your debt, and then you focus on the smallest debt first, clearing it off, and then you use that money to then focus on the next smallest. The idea here is that it's motivating to see your debts get cleared. The avalanche is similar, but it focuses on the highest interest debt first, and then you overpay that. Just do whatever feels best to you. If you're asking me though, the avalanche method is the best method because you're clearing the highest interest debt first, which makes the most financial sense as it's the one that's costing you the most money. Now, there are other ways to wipe debt. You've got things like debt management plans, IVAs, bankruptcy and debt relief orders, trust deeds in Scotland, I believe, but all of them will impact your credit rating. If you're struggling with debt and you feel that you can't manage, below in the description are links to debt charities who will advise you on all of these options for free. Speak to them before you speak to anyone else. Don't pay for debt advice. Okay, now let's talk about an area of personal finance I seldom see people discuss in these videos, but I know is a key consideration of financial advisors. Insurances.
Companies were refusing to pay up on genuine claims.
I've always been hyper skeptical about insurance, in this context anyway. It's always, to me, felt like a way for mortgage advisors and financial advisors just to earn a load more money out of people by selling them critical illness cover and such. But I went away and I did some research on this, and what I found honestly surprised me. Now, this data is provided by Zurich, who are an insurer, so let's take it with a pinch of salt. But not too much salt, because I hear that's bad for your heart and, well, yeah, check the stats. In relation to critical illness cover, the average age of a claim relating to open heart surgery was 35. Motor neuron disease was 45, and a stroke was 50. I ran some quotes for the income protection and pretended I was a car salesman who smoked, earning 40k a year and wanting 2k a month of cover. Basically the worst person on the planet. I'm only joking, car salesmen are okay. Finance YouTubers are the worst people on the planet. Anyway, it came out at about £24 a month for the cover. I know nothing about the insurance market, so I would seek some advice here. But income protection, critical illness cover, all of these things should at least be considered, especially if you're in the early stages of investing and building wealth, because if something did happen to you, what would your family fall back on? Later on down the line, you might think, I don't need this cover anymore because, you know, I've got plenty of savings now, assuming they're not all tied up in pensions, that is, which brings us on to the next stage, ISAs. ISAs are amazing. Tax-advantaged accounts that will protect your investments from certain taxes. You can stick 20k into your ISAs each year, and that allowance is shared across all of them. The main types are cash, stocks and shares, and LISA or lifetime ISA, which has its own separate limit of £4,000 and can be used either for buying a home or kind of saving for your retirement. You can't access it until you're 60. So it doesn't have the flexibility of the other ISA products. There's also something called the Innovative Finance ISA, but let's focus on stocks and shares today. I keep a list of all of the stocks and shares ISAs I use at the moment in the description of all of my videos. Now, to be honest, a pension is probably a better place to save for your retirement, especially if you're a higher rate or additional rate taxpayer, because you get tax relief on the money that you pay into your pension, but you don't with an ISA. Any money you've paid into your ISA has already been taxed. The benefit with an ISA here is, though, it won't be taxed on the way out. When I say no tax, what I mean is capital gains and dividend taxes. The reason I list an ISA here, though, instead of, say, throwing your money into a work-based scheme or a SIPP, is the flexibility you get from an ISA and the tax efficiency that that can produce in retirement when you use it alongside a pension. So from April 2028, you won't be able to touch any money inside of your pension until 57. Let's be honest here, that's probably going to go up again by the time I retire, and pension withdrawals are taxed like income. You can take 25% of your pension's value as a tax-free lump sum, either as a one-off or on a monthly basis. And then anything that you draw above that is taxed like it's income. Obviously, you get your tax-free allowance, but state pension gobbles up quite a lot of that as well. You can take money out of your ISA anytime you like without any tax implications. Basically, the one thing that we can be sure of is that the rules are going to change plenty between now and when I retire. So I think it's important to have a mix of different accounts with different rules that offer me the ability to pick and choose what I draw from. This way I can minimize the tax burden in retirement, because in this example, I'm assuming that I'm paying into a work-based pension. I'm ranking an ISA ahead of a SIPP for that reason, and that's what we're going to talk about next, is SIPP. A SIPP is a self-invested personal pension. If I was self-employed, which I am, I would pay into my SIPP as the first step on this list from my business in a similar way to the work-based pension, make saving from my retirement a priority. But as most people watching this are full-time employed, I've ordered it as if I was also full-time employed. You could stick extra money into your work-based scheme, and I would 100% be doing that up to the match contribution my employer offers to maximise that benefit. Again, another video out on that later this week. But most work schemes are expensive and offer poor investment choices. A SIPP gives you full control and the ability to limit fees significantly. Now we have the good practices down, what we want to look at is supercharging the amount of money that you can get into these structures. The truth about building wealth quickly is that there's two things that matter: how much time you have and how much money you can stick in. And that's why it's really important to be investing in yourself. I know this sounds like some absolute BS, but upskilling is truly a great way to increase your earnings. I would encourage you to learn skills that you can combine with your current role, and even better, go ask your boss, what can I do to move up the ladder here? And if he's not giving you much, go look for a job elsewhere. Read books, take courses, learn to edit videos, start a side hustle, whatever. Right, now let's look at the kids. Look, I know your child is priority number one to you, but I've left this so late in the mix because I guess with kids, it's kind of like, when you're on an airplane and they say, put your mask on first. As a parent, your financial security is your child's financial security. It makes no sense setting them up when you're struggling, because then in later life, you just become a burden to them. So strap on your financial mask first. They'll be all right, let them wait, then sort them out. Two ways we can do that here in the UK: a junior SIPP and a junior ISA. The junior SIPP, in my opinion, is the greatest gift a parent can probably give to a child. It's a pension for them that they can access when they get to retirement age, and you can pay into it, and they can then start paying into it as well when they get older and when their financial heads get screwed on properly. What that means is the money gets to compound for decades, potentially 60 years, say. So let's say on the day that they're born, you stick £5,000 into a junior SIPP, invested in a global index fund that has an average return of around 9% a year for the last 100 years pre-inflation. Then you do nothing else, you just leave that money for 60 years, you don't pay another penny in, and neither do they. On their 60th birthday, they will have approximately £1,084,000 in that SIPP. I know that 5k is a lot, so let's say instead you just stick 10 quid every month in there for 60 years. They'll have about £300,000 by the time they hit 60. Probably not enough to retire happily on, but at least it's something. Now, the junior ISA is the same as your ISA, but at 18, it legally becomes theirs. And the way I see it is I save into the SIPP to make sure my son is okay when I'm gone, and I save into an ISA so that I can hopefully get him onto the property ladder when he's in his 20s. If he blows the whole lot on a body kit on a Ford Escort, well, I'll just never speak to him again. Put your own mask on, lad. You can pay up to 9k a year into a junior ISA, but I just pay 50 quid a month into my son's, and my mum puts some money in too. Remember, the most responsible thing you can do for your child's financial future is make sure that you are secure. So just even a tiny amount in there is something. Okay, now that we've got all of that boxed off, let's discuss some honourable mentions, shall we, that you also might want to consider. The first one being paying off your mortgage early. This is a personal choice thing, really. I've made whole videos discussing this decision. With current interest rates being higher than they were, I can see why many might say, I would rather clear my mortgage and just be done with it. But for me personally, the expected long-term return of 9% that I think I'll get from the stock market is enough for me to go, I won't overpay the mortgage. Not significantly anyway, because sticking the same amount of money in the market over that period of the mortgage would probably produce a better return. Some people value being debt-free sooner, so they want the certainty of not having a mortgage payment. I get that completely. Okay, so finally, let's talk about speculative investments. Inside my SIPP, my ISA, my son's junior ISA and his SIPP are mainly global index funds. About 90% of what I invest is in these because I just want a predictable way to compound my wealth long term. But that doesn't mean that I don't want to roll the dice also. So once you have everything else in place that we've discussed above, I see no issue with carving out some of your funds to make some more speculative bets. These could be things like crypto, individual stocks, startup investing through places like Crowdcube, or your distant cousin's latest mad scheme that they want to get you involved in. People will disagree, but I think you shouldn't make this your main thing. It should form part of the risky part of your portfolio that all works together to compound your wealth long term. I have crypto. I like crypto. I know that it's doing well at the minute. I've made a good chunk of money in it in the last 12 months trading it from my phone, but I don't put all my eggs into that basket because it's these speculative bets. If you put everything there, you're just leaving your financial security in the hands of unproven, risky strategies. I am the best chance of me getting rich. I use global funds with a long track record of good returns to compound the wealth that I generate from my own life. The dice rolling on crypto and other such things really will be great if it pays off, and I really hope it does. I'm just never going to let that take away from the core, solid financial principles that I've set out in this video. Today's video is a real basic overview, so below I've listed a load of videos that expand on each of these sections we've discussed here. When the pension video is up on Sunday, I'll put it here. If you just watch one more video of mine this year besides this one, make it that one, because honestly, it's crucial that we get to grips with this, because it's costing about 8.5 million people in the UK around £700 a year each. Thank you.